165. The letter is from one of the Mahatmas to HPB, in which he describes the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge dwells in heads, replete with thoughts of other men. Wisdom in minds, attentive to their own. Now from the voice of silence. Search for the paths, but O Lanu, be of clean heart before thou startest on thy journey. Before thou takest thy first step, learn to discern the real from the false, the ever-fleeting from the everlasting. Leave above all to separate head learning from soul wisdom, the eye from the heart doctrine. Yes, please go ahead, Vibha.
Thank you, Vimal, for this wonderful reading that you have given from these two most important books. And namaste, dear brothers and sisters. Today, we will continue with the chronological letter number 67, one of the letters in which Mahatma Ji has given us a lot of theoretical teachings, which are quite complex and deep to understand. So before I begin on this second session, I will give a quick recap of what we did in the previous session so that we have a continuity. And let me also share the slides with you. Okay, so this letter number 67, it was written by Mahatma KH to A.O. Hume. And in my previous session, I mistakenly mentioned it to Sinnett. So sorry about that. The letter is written to Alan Hume and not to Sinnett. And this letter is in question answer format. And Hume's question was that does every form meaning mineral form, plant, animal, does every form have that entity within it which has the potential to develop into a planetary spirit? This is the question he asked Mahatma KH, to which Mahatma Ji replied, yes, that is correct. And it is called germ of the future entity. So rather than calling it entity, it is more correct to call it germ of the future entity. And Mahatma Ji also explains that the human fetus, it repeats in miniature all the forms which this germ has passed through. In the first 7 months of gestation, it repeats in miniature. Then how is this germ of future entity present in every form? That is the question. It is present in every form because when the Manvantar begins, each entity is the primordial cosmic atom. This is what Mahatma Ji has mentioned. And this primordial cosmic atom is in fact the germ. That itself is the germ. And as differentiation happens, this germ gets covered by other coverings, the encasings or the forms of that Manvantar. So the potentiality is already present in the form because of that primordial cosmic atom. So the question is that where from in this primordial cosmic atom that germ came? The answer to that is that that potential comes in the germ or the primordial cosmic atom from the one element. This one element, it is the infinite life. It is the source of all life, whether visible or invisible. It is an inexhaustible essence and it is present everywhere. It is pervading everything. It is present in every imponderable atom. Mahatma Ji calls it Swabhavat. And in different philosophies, different terms are given for it, which is mentioned in the letter. He has also called it as the Shakti of Parbrahma. So that is Swabhavat, which is all pervading, present in every atom. Therefore, it is also in the primordial cosmic atom, which becomes the potential to evolve into the planetary spirit. Now, this one element, it gives rise to new centers of activity. Centers of activity you can think as points of consciousnesses. And the original quantity of that one element, it is not affected in the least. Each of these new centers, they in turn will give rise to subsequent new centers. The differentiated new centers will gain additional characteristics. So this is basically a sequence of differentiation that has been explained. But the differentiated centers, they will retain the original and inherent characteristics. And plus they will acquire some new characteristics. Mahatma Ji also clarifies that when he refers to humanity, it is not just the humanity of this present fourth round, but it includes all that which has already evoluted. So perhaps it means the humanity of the previous rounds of our chain and also of the other planets. So this is what we covered in the previous session. Now let us continue with today's session, that is slide number 12. So he mentioned, Mahatma Ji has further mentioned that let us represent the unknown quantity as X. So he has given a slight mathematical analogy for Hume to understand. He says the unknown quantity is X and this quantity is the one eternal immutable principle. And A, B, C, D, E, 5 of the 6 minor principles or components of the same. That is the principles of earth, water, air, fire, and ether. That is Akash. Following the order of their spirituality and beginning with the lowest. So a thing to note over here is that of all elements, earth is lowest in spirituality. It is the last emanated element. And also note that fire is higher in spirituality than air. Although in the sequence of emanation, from Akash, Vayu or air will emanate. But in the sequence of spirituality, after Akash comes fire. So fire is higher in spirituality than air. The fire that we see on our physical plane, that is the grossest form of the fire element. And it is on our physical earth, the highest spiritual form that man has access to is fire. That is why fire is considered so sacred and mostly all ceremonies are performed with fire as witness. So next point, there is a sixth principle answering to the sixth principle buddhi in man. But we are not permitted to name it except among the initiates. I may, however, hint that it is connected with the process of the highest intellection. Let us call it N. Now, here Mahatma Ji is mentioning that we are not permitted to name it. This is the sixth principle answering to the sixth principle, buddhi in man. That means he is referring to the sixth cosmic principle or universal principle. And if we look a little prior in the same letter on slide 10, I think, yes. He has mentioned in the letter that the sixth principle of the universe, call it Purush Shakti. This we covered in the last session. So this Purush Shakti, this is the sixth principle which he is referring to. It is equivalent to Mahabuddhi and it corresponds to the sixth principle in man, which is Buddhi. So actually, though he has not given details about the sixth cosmic principle, but he has named it over here, which we can consider as Purush Shakti. The Shakti by which all the differentiation happens and the universe gets manifested. So that is the first differentiation, the sixth principle. So he calls it, it is connected with the process of the highest intellection. It is the highest level of knowledge or the highest knowledge which is attainable. That is the first differentiated or the first manifested. Then next point, besides these, there is under all the activities of the phenomenal universe an energizing impulse from X. Call this Y. Algebraically stated, our equation would therefore read A plus B plus C plus D plus E plus N plus Y equal to X. So he has made it a little mathematical for Hume to understand. We have already seen that A, B, C, D, E. These are the 5 elements of earth, water, air, fire, and Akash. Then after E, N is basically the 6th universal principle. So apart from these 5, the Pancha Mahabhut as they are called, before the Pancha Mahabhut, there is another principle, the 6th one, the 6th cosmic element, from which all these 5 have differentiated. So that is called N. And all these principles or these Mahabhut, they are energized by a force or an energy from the one immutable element. That energy is called Y. So all of this put together, all of this comes from Y. That is why how this equation comes about, that everything added up is equal to X. But we should keep in mind that the immutable, unknowable principle, we cannot reduce it to a mathematical equation. It is said that the universe is manifested only with a fraction of that immutable principle. And pervading this universe, the immutable principle transcends it and still exists. So actually, it will not be like this equation that if you sum up everything, then it becomes X. But this is just for Hume to understand. Each of these 6 letters represents, so to speak, the spirit or abstraction of what you call elements. So understanding, moreover, it is not even representing these elements of earth, water, fire, air, fire, and ether. It is representing the spirit, the vivifying, informing, vivifying, impelling, evolving cause, this which is behind these elements. So that is what he has mentioned further, that this spirit, it controls the entire line of evolution around the whole Manvantric cycle in its own department. He's talking about the spirit of the element, each element. We have seen, we know 5 elements, and plus there is a 6th element also. So that spirit of every element, it controls the entire line of evolution around the whole Manvantric cycle in its own department. The informing, vivifying, impelling, evolving cause behind the countless phenomenal manifestations in that department of nature. So Manvantar, this term comes frequently. What is Manvantar? It is one round, meaning the life wave passes from globe A to globe G. These globes are on different planes. So this we should always keep in mind. Now the spirit of each element, it is the primary cause which determines the evolution and the phenomenal manifestation of that element on all the planes throughout the Manvantar. On all the planes, meaning on all the globes from A to G, because each globe is on a different plane, in descending arc and then ascending arc. Now, if you compare this to religion, spirit of each element, what does it mean? It means that there is an intelligent conscious being, which is this whole element that you consider. There is an intelligent conscious being. For example, what we speak in Hinduism, Agni Dev. We call Agni Dev as the god of fire, or rather the spirit of fire. And this spirit is personified and it is called Agni Dev. Similarly, the spirit of water, that is Varun Dev. So Varun Dev is considered the god or the spirit of the waters or the oceans. And this notion is not just in Hinduism, it is in other religions also. In the ancient Greek religion, there is this Greek god called Poseidon. Poseidon is the god of oceans or of water. So these ideas that behind every element, there is the informing spirit. It was there, it formed the basis of all religions. But gradually, as time passed, those truths were forgotten. And that is how dogmas came into being. So when we study theosophy, it is a very good idea. Rather, it should be practiced that we understand our own religion more deeply and more accurately, so that it dispels superstition. The next point, let us work out the idea with a single example. So there are so many elements, we just take one element. Take fire, that is D. The primal igneous principle. Igneous means fire or fiery. So it is the igneous principle. It is resident in X. X is the eternal immutable principle. It is eternal and immutable. So that is X. And in that, this primal igneous principle, it is inherent, which becomes later the fire element. It is the ultimate cause of every phenomenal manifestation of fire on all the globes of the chain. So this igneous principle or the fiery principle, which is resident, or it is potential, or it is inherent in the immutable principle X, that becomes the ultimate cause of fire manifesting on all the planes, on all the globes. Next, the proximate causes are the evoluted secondary igneous agencies, which severally control the 7 descents of fire on each planet. 7 descents on each planet, they are the 7 globes of our Earth chain. Every element having its 7 principles, and every principle its 7 sub-principles. And these secondary agencies, before doing so, have in turn become primary causes. Let us understand this with an analogy. When the universe manifests, the first cause, which is the cause of manifestation of the universe, so that first cause, it produces a set of effects. Then these effects in turn will become causes, and they will produce the next set of effects. Similarly, those next set of effects will again become causes to produce the next level of effects. So this goes on ad infinitum. Exactly the same way, these elements, they are evolving. So here we consider the fire element. It has 7 principles. And these principles, they manifest on the 7 planes. So this is nothing but 7 types of fire, or 7 forms of fire, one on each plane. Then each fire principle, it will again have 7 sub-principles. Thus, it will produce the 7 fires on their respective plane. Okay, on every plane, again, you have 7 types of fires, and there are 7 planes. So total, there are 49 fires. Similarly, similar is the case for every element. Every element will have its 7 principles, and each principle will have 7 sub-principles. So basically, these 7 sub-principles, they become the primary causes for the manifestation of the element on that particular globe. And it is not just one manifestation. There will be numerous phenomenal manifestations, numerous differentiations and combinations. Okay, but those sub-principles, there are 7 sub-principles on each globe for every element. They become the primary causes. So that is called proximate cause, the immediate cause or the closest cause, which is causing the manifestation of fire on our planet. So that is the proximate cause. Now, these 7 personified fires, they are actually given in detail in our religion also. It is given in the Puran, especially in the Vayu Puran. And HPB has mentioned this in Secret Doctrine. D, the D, which was the fire element, is a septenary compound of which the highest fraction is pure spirit. As we see it on our globe, it is in its coarsest, most material condition, as gross in its way as is man in his physical encasement. In the next preceding globe to ours, fire was less gross than here. On the one before that, less still. And so the body of flame was more and more pure and spiritual, less and less gross and material on each antecedent planet. Antecedent meaning the globe previous to the physical earth. Now, what do we understand by spiritual? Pure and spiritual means that it is less differentiated. Hence, it is closer to the one reality. Like we say, Buddhic plane, it is closest to the Atmic plane. So it is more spiritual. Okay. And gross and material means it is more differentiated. Hence, it is far removed from the one reality. Now, how it has differentiated? The primary fire, it differentiates into 7. That means it manifests on each of the 7 planes. Then the 7th differentiation, it manifests on our earth. And here again on earth, this manifestation of fire, it differentiates into 7 types of fire. Now I want to read to you what is given about this 7 types of fire in Secret Doctrine. It is nothing but HPP has taken it from the Vayu Puran, and she writes that it is shown even in the meager and purposely veiled phraseology. So it is a veiled terminology which is used in Puran, or the facts are not given out plainly to the general public. But there it is mentioned, and the qualities of this fire, they are personified. So fire is personified. As we said, it is the spirit of that fire element. It is personified and it is explained like this. Pavak is electric or Vidyut fire. Pavman is the fire produced by friction. Suchi is the solar fire. So first 3 she has explained. Pavak, that is electric fire. Pavman, which is produced by friction. And Suchi, which is the solar fire. And all these 3, they are the sons of Agni. So Agni is their predecessor or father. They are the sons of Agni. And Agni is the eldest son of Brahma. So the first cause of the manifestation of universe, that is Brahma. So Agni is his son, and Agni has these 3 sons which we saw. And then these 3 sons again have 1 son each. So who are they? Kavya Vahan, which is the fire of Pitris. So the first differentiation, Pavak, is the father of Kavya Vahan. Kavya Vahan is that fire which is the fire of Pitris. Then Suchi is the parent of Havya Vahan. Suchi was the solar fire, and it is parent of which fire? Havya Vahan, that is the fire of the gods. When Yagya is done and Ahuti is put in that Agni, that is the Havya Vahan. And it is said that the Ahuti is transmitted to the gods. What does this mean? We must try to understand the science behind it, what it means. That Suchi, which is the solar fire, that is the parent fire of this Havya Vahan. Okay, the fire of gods. And then the third son, who was Pavman, he is the father of Saharaksh. That is the 6th form of Agni, Saharaksh. Saharaksh is the fire of Asur. Asur were the demons. So this is the allegory which is there in the Quran. But if we study it and if we understand it in the light of theosophy, we will understand the reality behind it. So this was just an explanation I wanted to give from the Secret Doctrine about the 7 fires. We will continue with the letter, the second point. On the first of all in the Manvantrik chain, that is on the first globe of our earth chain, it appeared as an almost pure object shining, the Mahabuddhi, 6th principle of the eternal light. So Mahabuddhi is the 6th universal principle. So that is how it appeared on the first globe, it meaning the fire. Our globe being at the bottom of the arc, where matter exhibits itself in its grossest form. Grossest meaning the most material, most dense material form. So our globe is at the bottom of the arc, where matter exhibits itself in grossest form along with spirit. When the fire element manifests itself on the globe next succeeding hours in the ascending arc, it will be less dense than we see it. So our globe is on the lowest plane, physical plane. So densest form of fire manifests here. The next globe of our chain, that will be the globe, this is D. So next will be E. So that the globe E, it is on the plane above ours. So there the manifestation of fire will also be less dense than we see it. Its spiritual quality will be identical with that which fire had on the globe preceding ours. So the spiritual quality of fire on the globe E will be identical to the spiritual quality of fire of globe C. Globe C is the globe which is preceding ours in the descending scale. Preceding meaning before our globe. So C and E, they have manifestation of fire which is same in spiritual quality. We explained what is spiritual, how close it is to the one reality. So because they are in the same plane, they would have the same spiritual quality. And the second globe of the ascending scale is the globe F. After D, we have E and F. So F is the second ascending globe. It will correspond in quality with that of the second anterior globe. Anterior meaning previous in the descending arc. Which was that? That would be globe B. So the globe B corresponds to globe F. And the quality, spiritual quality of fire on both these globes would be same. So in this way, it will continue. Same will be for globe A and for globe G. Now, on each globe of the chain, there are 7 manifestations of fire, of which the first in order will compare as to the spiritual quality with the last manifestation on the next preceding planet. The process being reversed, as you will infer, with the opposite arc. I think it is better I will show you a diagram of the globes. So it is more clear what Mahatma ji is saying. It is... Okay, here you can see the earth chain on the left side, bottom left side of the slide. I have shown the earth chain. The globe D is at the lowest plane, the physical plane. And then you have the ascending arc and the globes on the descending arc. So in the letter what Mahatma ji mentioned that on each globe of the chain, there are 7 manifestations of fire, of which the first in order will compare as to the spiritual quality with the last manifestation on the next preceding planet. So here you can see each globe, all the 7 globes are shown. On each globe, fire has 7 differentiations. Now consider the descending arc. So the 7th differentiation of fire on the globe C, that is our preceding planet. 7th differentiation of fire on globe C, it will compare to the first differentiation of fire on our globe D. Because after C comes D. So 7th differentiation on C will correspond to first differentiation on our globe D. Now when we move to ascending arc, that means from our globe D, whatever is the 7th differentiation of fire here, it will compare to the first differentiation on globe E. That is the next ascending. Okay, so whichever is the last on the previous globe, it corresponds to the first on the next globe. That is what Mahatma ji is saying. So I will return to our slide 15. Okay. Now we move to the third point. The myriad specific manifestations of these 6 universal elements are in their turn but one offshoot, branches or branchlets of the one single primordial tree of life. So all these components which constitute the entire universe, they are collectively called the tree of life. There are the 6 cosmic elements, then there are various gradations, differentiations, permutations and combinations. And this is only one branch or rather branchlet of this primordial tree. The primordial tree of life, it has many, many more components. And all of them have emanated from the one immutable element. This tree is called Ashwatha tree in the Hindu scriptures. It is shown with its root towards the top, and branches and leaves, they are towards the bottom. Many philosophies in the Indian context, they explain these components. For example, in Sankhya, 24 tattva, they have been expounded. In Shaivism, there are 36 tattva. So they include all these Panchamahabhut and plus the other tattva also, which go into making of the universe. So that is the tree of life. This tree of life, it has been compared to what Darwin said. Mahatma ji has mentioned, take Darwin's genealogical tree of life of the human race and others, and bearing ever in mind the wise old adage, as below so above. That is the universal system of correspondences. Try to understand by analogy. Thus will you see that in this day, on this present earth, in every mineral, etc., there is such a spirit. I will say no more. Every grain of sand, every boulder or crag of granite, is that spirit crystallized or petrified? You hesitate. So we know this Charles Darwin, he was an English naturalist and biologist, and in his theory of evolution, he proposed that species evolve. They change over time, and that new species, they come from the pre-existing ones. And all the species, they share a common ancestor. This was his theory. So Mahatma ji is saying that you should understand this by analogy. Same is that tree of life. All those elements, all those components, they evolve, and everything has a common ancestor. That is the eternal, immutable element, the one element. Every speck of mineral on this earth, it has the same spirit because it comes from that same immutable element. So, and that immutable element, it is the innermost essence of every particle, every atom. It pervades everything. And that spirit, which is its innermost essence, it is crystallized because it is covered by so many coverings over it. So it is crystallized, but it has the potential to evolve into future entities. The monad begins its journey from elemental, mineral, plant, animal. It comes in human. Here it is self-conscious, and it has the potential to grow into the perfected man and then further into the planetary spirit. So last point, take a primer of geology and see what science affirms there about the formation and growth of minerals. What is the origin of all the rocks, whether sedimentary or igneous? Take a piece of granite or sandstone and you find one composed of crystals, the other of grains of various stones, organic stones or stones formed out of the remains of once living plants and animals. Will not serve our present purpose. Continues. They are the relics of subsequent evolution, while we are concerned but with the primordial ones. Now, sedimentary and igneous rocks are composed, the former of sand, gravel, and mud, the latter of lava. We have then but to trace the origin of the two. What do we find? So, Mahatma ji is talking always in terms of what Hume can understand, what Sinnett can understand. So they, at that time, what was prevalent in the contemporary science, that is what they studied or they knew about it. So he's talking about these rocks to find the origin of these rocks, the origin of sedimentary and igneous rocks, not organic rocks, because organic rocks are composed of other living beings. We have to go to the basics. So we take those rocks which are either crystalline or they are formed of the previous rocks. We find that one was compounded of three elements, or more accurately, three several manifestations of one element: earth, water, and fire. This is actually the sedimentary rock, not composed of organic plants and animals which have been compressed, but which is formed of these material: earth, water, and fire. And the other, that is the igneous rock, it was similarly compounded, though under different physical conditions, out of cosmic matter, the imaginary materia prima itself, one of the manifestations sixth principle of the one element. So, see, cosmic matter, it is not recognized by contemporary science because it is not cognizable. Science does not recognize it, and therefore it may term it as imaginary. That is why imaginary materia prima. But it is the primary material, the first substance, the first differentiation of the one element. And that is the sixth principle of the one element. So the sixth principle, you can compare it to Mahabuddhi, the cosmic Buddhi. Compare it to the sixth principle in man, that is Buddhi. So Mahabuddhi, that is the first differentiation, and it is material. It is a substance because it is not spirit. It is the carrier of that spirit. Buddhi is the vehicle of Atma. So it is substance or matter, which is the carrier of that spirit. And this sixth principle, everything is formed out of that only because it differentiates into the lower elements. And then all these elements, they combine to form, these are minerals, sedimentary or igneous rocks, mineral, plant form, animal form, everything will be formed by those primary or the cosmic elements. So the sixth cosmic principle, which is Mahabuddhi, as compared to spirit, it is still material substance, although it might be the most subtle substance, but still it is material. It is the first differentiated substance. The one element is inherent in its every atom because it pervades every atom. Just as in man, Buddhi is the carrier of Atma. So same way, that one essence, it pervades all particles, all atoms of that sixth universal principle. In the previous slide, earlier in this letter, it was mentioned that the globe or the planet, when it is formed, the stages of the formation of that planet are given. It becomes the cloud of this cosmic matter. Cosmic matter are all the cosmic elements, not only the sixth element, but the other five also, Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. So this cosmic matter, it is in a nebulous or in a cloud form. Then it becomes a spiral, and then it becomes a sphere of fire mist. Then the sphere, it condenses, consolidates, it shrinks, and it cools, and then it forms the planet. So how can we say that rocks of the earth, they don't contain that spirit? They do contain that spirit because they are formed of that cosmic matter, which is pervaded by that essence, by that spirit. So that is his last point. How then can we doubt that a mineral contains in it a spark of the one, as everything else in this objective nature does? So there can be no doubt about it. Every particle in the cosmos, it contains the spark of the one. Then we come to the next question which Hume has asked. He asks that when the pralay commences, what becomes of the spirit that has not worked its way up to man? So spirit is there in all the forms. Now pralay has come. Then what will happen to the spirit which is there in the lower forms? And the answer to this Mahatma Ji gives. The period necessary for the completion of the 7 local or earthly, or shall we call it globe rings, not to speak of the 7 rounds in the minor manvantars, followed by their 7 minor pralayas. The completion of the so-called mineral cycle is immeasurably longer than that of any other kingdom. See, similar to the other kingdoms, they consider the human kingdom. We have the 7 root races, right? So similar to this, all the other kingdoms also, in that the forms have to pass through 7 groups or 7 classes. So in the mineral kingdom, the minerals have to pass through 7 classes on every globe. You can compare them to 7 root races of man. And the completion of the mineral cycle, it takes much longer than any other kingdom. As you may infer by analogy, every globe, before it reaches its adult period, has to pass through a formation period, which is also septenary. Law in nature is uniform. and the conception, formation, birth, progress, and development of the child differs from those on the globe only in magnitude. What this means is that just like a child is conceived, then it grows, the same thing applies to the globe also, the planet, just that it is on a larger scale. So this Mahatma Ji explains about the globe. The globe has two periods of teeth and of capulature. Its first rocks, which it also sheds to make room for new, and its ferns and mosses before it gets forest. So just like a child has the first set of milk teeth, they fall and then they are replaced by permanent teeth. So similarly, the rocks of the earth, they get replaced. And just like the child, when he is born, he has some hair on his head. So the family, the hair from birth, they are shaved off so that new hair can grow. Similarly, the initial ferns and mosses, they are corresponding to this hair from birth, and they give way to the larger plants and trees. So comparison of the globe and of the child. Second point, as the atoms in the body change every 7 years, so does the globe renew its strata every 7 cycles. Now, this is another important point, that in the human body, all the cells, all the atoms in our physical body, they are replaced. They change every 7 years or so, which means our body is not the same. Every 7 years, everything is replaced. We have a totally new body. And the same thing happens to the globe also. It renews its strata every 7 cycle. Strata is the layer of its soil and rocks with all that flora and fauna. So that is the strata. He mentions that a section of a part of Cape Breton coalfields shows 7 ancient soils with remains of as many forests, and could one dig as deep, once more 7 other sections would be found following. So this evidence has also been found of this septenary renewal. It has been seen in the coal fields of Cape Breton. Cape Breton is in Nova Scotia, that is east of Canada, on the eastern coast of Canada. So what we have seen so far, that there is the germ or the spirit, which is there in every form, whether mineral, plant, animal, whichever form. And it contains the potential to become a future entity. Then we are also told about the formation of globe and its septenary renewal of strata, which is similar to the birth and growth of a child. Now Mahatma Ji addresses Hume's question about what will happen to this germ or spirit in the lower forms, which has not yet become man, and pralay commences. So what will happen to that germ or the spirit? We have time for maybe about 1 or 2 more. So Mahatma Ji tells him that there are 3 kinds of pralays, 3 kinds of pralays and manvantar. The universal or Mahapralay and manvantar, the solar pralay and manvantar, the minor pralay and manvantar. When the pralay number 1 is finished, the universal manvantar begins. Then the whole universe must be re-evoluted de novo. So this universal pralay, it dissolves. It is called Mahapralay. Everything dissolves. All the stars, all the solar systems, everything in the universe, it is dissolved. And after that Mahapralay, the universe has to emanate anew. It begins anew. This duration of universal manvantar, in our Purans, it is equal to the age of Brahma. 100 years is the age of Brahma. And this is 100 of Brahma's years, not human years. So 100 years of age of Brahma, that is the age of the universe. And after that duration, the universal pralay happens for equal duration. The next pralay, when the pralay of a solar system comes, it affects that solar system only. A solar pralay equals 7 minor pralay. So in solar pralay, the whole solar system comes to an end. but only that particular solar system. The other solar systems may continue. Then the minor pralay of number 3 concern but our little string of globes. That is our planetary chain, whether man-bearing or not. So it can be any planet, not necessarily Earth. To such a string, our Earth belongs. So here Mahatma ji has referred planetary pralay as minor pralay. Planetary pralay will come with the completion of the 7 rounds, and it will mark the end of that planetary chain. So that is planetary pralay, to which Mahatma ji has referred as minor pralay. But there is a point to note over here, because then there will be confusion in terminology. Madam Blavatsky has called the pralay occurring after every round as minor pralay. And after 7 rounds, the pralay that is called planetary pralay. So there is a difference in the terms. You need to keep this in mind, otherwise you will get confused in minor pralay and planetary pralay. Okay. So I will take probably one more slide. Besides this, within a minor pralay, that is planetary pralay, there is a condition of planetary rest, or as the astronomers say, death, like that of our present moon, in which the rocky body of the planet survives, but the life impulse has passed out. So we know moon is in the planetary pralay currently. That means that all the 7 rounds of moon chain are completed, and its life impulse has passed on to the next chain, which is our Earth chain. The rocky body of the moon is still visible to us, but that is a dying planet, and slowly it will wither away. So this is one of the stage of the planet when the planetary pralay commences. For example, let us imagine that our Earth is one of a group of 7 planets or man-bearing worlds, more or less elliptically arranged. Our Earth, being at the exact lower central point of the orbit of evolution, that is halfway round, we will call the first globe A and the last globe Z. So here Mahatma ji is taking the example of Earth, and he says that after each solar pralay, there is a complete destruction of our system, and after each solar pralay begins the absolute objective reformation of our system, and each time everything is more perfect than before. So these 2 diagrams are not from the letter. I have taken them just to give you a clarity. The diagram at the top, this is the diagram of 7 chains in a scheme. It's just an example of 7 chains, which is shown by C.W. Leadbeater. And the diagram which is to the left side at the bottom, that is the diagram of our present Earth chain, which is equivalent to what Madam Blavatsky has shown in the Secret Doctrine. On the Earth chain, our globe, physical globe D, is on the physical plane, and the other globes are on the higher planes. So this is what Mahatma ji has mentioned, that during solar pralay, there is a complete destruction of our system, that is the entire solar system. And then when after the pralay, the absolute objective reformation of our system has to start again. And each time it will be more perfect. That means it will be on a more higher plane than before. So with this, I will conclude today's session, and we will continue the remaining part of the letter in the next session. I request Meenakshi ji to give us the translation in Hindi now.
नमस्ते, थैंक यू सिस्टर। आज हम लेटर नंबर 67 का अगला पार्ट ले रहे हैं। मास्टर एओ ह्यूम से कहते हैं कि आइए हम उस अज्ञात मात्रा को x के रूप में ले। वह मात्रा एकमेव शाश्वत अविनाशी तत्व है और A, B, C, D, E यहाँ 6 लघु तत्वों के या उसी के घटकों में से 5 है, अर्थात पृथ्वी, जल, वायु, अग्नि और आकाश के तत्व उनकी आध्यात्मिकता के क्रम से है और निम्नतम से शुरू होते हैं। ब्रह्मांड के छठे तत्व के संलग्न मनुष्य का छठा तत्व बुद्धि है। उलझन से बचने के लिए याद रखें कि निम्नतम से देखने पर सभी अमूर्त या शाश्वत तत्व को प्रथम क्रमांक के रूप में दर्शाएंगे और सांसारिक जगत को सातवें के रूप में, और चाहे वह मनुष्य से संबंधित हो या ब्रह्मांड से। दूसरी ओर से देखने पर संख्या क्रम बिल्कुल उल्टा होगा, लेकिन दीक्षितों के अलावा हमें इसका नाम लेने की अनुमति नहीं है। हालांकि मैं यह संकेत दे सकता हूँ कि यह उच्चतम बुद्धि की प्रक्रिया से संबंधित है। आइए हम इसे एन कहें, और इनके अलावा फिनोमिनल यूनिवर्स यानी सांसारिक जगत की सभी गतिविधियों के तले एक्स से निकलने वाला एक ऊर्जावान इम्पल्स है, इसे वाई कहते हैं। बीजगणितीय रूप से कहे तो हमारा समीकरण a प्लस बी प्लस सी प्लस डी प्लस ई प्लस एन प्लस वाई इक्वल टू एक्स होगा। कहा जाए तो इन 6 अक्षरों में से प्रत्येक, जिसे आप महाभूत या एलिमेंट्स कहते हैं, उसका सार या सारांशन है। पूरे मानवांतरिक चक्र में अपने विभाग में यह स्वरूप संपूर्ण विकास क्रम को नियंत्रित करता है। प्रकृति की उस विभाग में अनगिनत सांसारिक अभिव्यक्तियों के पीछे यह सूचित करने वाला, पुनर्जीवित करने वाला, प्रेरित करने वाला विकसनशील कारण है। इस विचार को आइए हम एक उदाहरण द्वारा समझते हैं। अग्नि यानी डी को लेते हैं, जो एक्स में स्थित प्राथमिक आग्नेय तत्व है। एक चेन के सभी ग्लोब्स पर अग्नि के हर सांसारिक अभिव्यक्ति का मूलभूत कारण है। उससे उत्क्रांत द्वियम एजेंसी यह समीपस्थ कारण है जो प्रत्येक ग्रह पर अग्नि के 7 अवतरणों को स्वतंत्र रूप से नियंत्रित करते हैं। प्रत्येक एलिमेंट के 7 तत्व होते हैं और प्रत्येक तत्व के 7 उपतत्व होते हैं, और यह द्वितीयक ऐसा बनने से पूर्व बदले में प्राथमिक कारण बने। अग्नि डी यह सप्तक कंपाउंड है, जिसका उच्चतम अंश शुद्ध आत्मा शुद्धत्व है। जैसे कि हम इसे अपने ग्लोब पर देखते हैं, यह अपनी सबसे स्थूल, सबसे भौतिक स्थिति में है, उतना ही स्थूल रूप में है जितना कि मनुष्य अपने भौतिक आवरण में है। हमसे पहले वाले ग्लोब में अग्नि यहाँ की तुलना में कम द्रव्यमान थी, उससे भी पहले वाले पर और भी कम द्रव्यमान थी, और इस तरह अग्नि का रूप प्रत्येक पूर्ववर्ती प्लेनेट पर अधिकाधिक शुद्ध और पवित्र था और कम मात्रा में द्रव्यमान और पदार्थीय था। मन्वंतरिक श्रृंखला में आरंभ में पहले ग्लोब में यह लगभग एक शुद्ध वस्तु के रूप में प्रकाशमान महाबुद्धि थी, जो अनंत असीम प्रकाश का छठा प्रिंसिपल है। हमारा ग्लोब उत्क्रांति चाप के निचले स्तर में है, जहां आत्मा के साथ पदार्थ अपने स्थूल रूप में, घन रूप में व्यक्त होता है। जब अग्नि तत्व आरोही चाप में हमारे बाद वाले ग्लोब में स्वयं को प्रकट करेगा, वह यहाँ जैसे हम देखते हैं उससे भी कम घन रूप में होगा। उसके आध्यात्मिक गुणवत्ता हमसे पहले वाले अवरोहन के ग्लोब सी की अग्नि के समान होगी। आरोहण वाला ग्लोब, दूसरा ग्लोब एफ, हमारे ग्लोब के पूर्व वाले अवरोहन के दूसरे ग्लोब बी की गुणवत्ता के अनुरूप होगा, आदि। एक चेन के प्रत्येक ग्लोब पर अग्नि की 7 अभिव्यक्तियां हैं, जिसमें से पहले क्रम की अग्नि की आध्यात्मिक गुणवत्ता पूर्ववर्ती ग्रह के अंतिम प्रकटीकरण के स्वरूप में होगी। अपोजिट आर्क में यह प्रक्रिया उल्टी होती है। इन 6 यूनिवर्सल एलिमेंट्स की असंख्य विशिष्ट अभिव्यक्तियां अपने आप में एकमेव प्रारंभिक जीवन वृक्ष की शाखाएं या उपशाखाएं हैं। मानव जाति और अन्य के संबंध में डार्विन के जीवन के वंशावली वृक्ष को ले और पुरानी उद्बोधक कहावत को हमेशा ध्यान में रखें, एज बिलो सो अबव। यह सार्वभौमिक समरूपता की प्रणाली है। इसकी सादृश्यता द्वारा इसे समझने का प्रयास करें, ऐसा मास्टर कहते हैं। इस प्रकार आप देखेंगे कि इस समय वर्तमान पृथ्वी पर प्रत्येक खनिज आदि में ऐसा स्वरूप है। और मास्टर कहते हैं कि मैं और कहूंगा, आगे और कहूंगा। आगे वे कहते हैं कि रेत का हर कण, ग्रेनाइट की हर शिला या चट्टान, उसमें वही स्वरूप सघन या पथरीले रूप में है। भूविज्ञान की प्राथमिक पुस्तक ले और देखे कि खनिज के निर्माण और विकास के बारे में विज्ञान क्या दावा करता है। सभी पत्थरों की, चाहे वह सेडिमेंटरी हो या इग्नियस हो, उनका स्रोत क्या है। ग्रेनाइट या सैंडस्टोन का एक टुकड़ा ले और आप देखेंगे कि वह क्रिस्टल या स्फटिक से बना है, तो दूसरा विभिन्न पत्थरों के कणों से बना है। सेडिमेंटरी रॉक्स रेत, कंकड़ और मिट्टी से बने हैं, तो इग्नियस रॉक लावा से। अब हमें इन दोनों की उत्पत्ति का पता लगाना है। हम क्या देखते हैं? हम देखते हैं कि एक तो 3 एलिमेंट से बना है, या सटीक रूप से कहे तो 1 एलिमेंट के 3 यानी पृथ्वी, जल, अग्नि की कई अभिव्यक्तियों से मिश्रित किया गया है। और दूसरा भी इसी तरह ब्रह्मांडीय पदार्थ से मिश्रित था, जो एक काल्पनिक मूल पदार्थ, परम तत्व के छठे प्रिंसिपल की अभिव्यक्ति है। जैसे इस दृश्यमान सृष्टि में हर किसी में परमात्मा की चिंगारी है, वैसे ही एक खनिज में भी इसके होने पर हम संदेह कैसे कर सकते हैं? आगे का प्रश्न है, जब प्रलय का आरंभ होता है तब उस आत्मा का क्या होता है जो मनुष्य बनने तक पहुंच नहीं पाया? मास्टर उत्तर देते हैं, 7 स्थानीय या सांसारिक ग्लोब रिंग्स को पूरा करने के लिए आवश्यक कालावधि यानी लघु मनवंतर के 7 राउंड्स के बाद उनके लघु प्रलयों के बारे में भी यहाँ बात हो रही है। उसके तथाकथित खनिज चक्र का पूरा होना किसी भी अन्य किंगडम से बहुत अधिक लंबा होता है। जैसा कि आप समरूपता द्वारा अनुमान लगा सकते हैं कि प्रत्येक ग्लोब को अपने प्रौढ़ स्थिति में पहुंचने से पूर्व रचनात्मकता की कालावधि से गुजरना पड़ता है। वह भी सप्तक है, सेप्टेनरी है। प्रकृति में नियम एक समान है और गर्भधारणा, गर्भ का निर्माण, बच्चे का जन्म, बढ़ती और विकास, यह एक ग्लोब से केवल विशालता में, उसकी मात्रा में भिन्न है। टीथिंग और कैपिलेचर यह ग्लोब की 2 कालावधि है। नई चट्टानों के लिए जगह बनाने प्रारंभिक चट्टानें बिखर जाती है और जंगल का निर्माण होने से पूर्व फर्न्स और मॉसेस का निर्माण होता है। जैसे 7 साल में शरीर के परमाणु बदलते हैं, वैसे ही ग्लोब हर 7 साइकिल्स में अपने परतों का नवीनीकरण करता है। केप ब्रेटन के कोयला खदानों के एक हिस्से को भाग करने पर पुरानी मिट्टी के 7 स्तर और कई जंगलों के स्तर के अवशेष दिखाई देते हैं, और ज्यादा गहरा खोदने पर दूसरा सप्तक सेक्शन दिखाई देगा। प्रलय और मनवंतर के 3 प्रकार हैं। पहला ब्रह्मांडीय या महाप्रलय और मनवंतर, दूसरा सौर प्रलय और मनवंतर, तीसरा लघु प्रलय और मनवंतर। जब प्रलय नंबर 1 समाप्त हो जाता है, तब यूनिवर्सल मनवंतर का आरंभ होता है। तब पूरे ब्रह्मांड को पुनः नए सिरे से विकसित करना होगा। जब किसी सौर मंडल का प्रलय आता है, तो वह उसी सौर मंडल को प्रभावित करता है। एक सौर प्रलय यानी 7 लघु प्रलय। तीसरे क्रमांक का लघु प्रलय केवल ग्लोब्स की छोटी सी माला से संबंधित है, चाहे वह मानवधारी हो या नहीं। ऐसे ही एक माला से हमारी पृथ्वी संबंधित है। इसके अलावा एक लघु प्रलय में ग्रह के विश्राम की स्थिति है, या जिसे एस्ट्रोनॉमर्स डेथ कहते हैं, मृत्यु कहते हैं। वर्तमान स्थिति के हमारे चंद्रमा की तरह, जिसमें उस ग्रह का खड़कीय भाग बचा है, लेकिन जीवन तरंग निकल चुकी है। उदाहरण के तौर पर आइए हम कल्पना करें कि हमारी पृथ्वी 7 ग्रहों के समूह में से एक है, या थोड़ी बहुत अंडाकार रूपीय मानवधारी जगत है। हमारी पृथ्वी विकास पथ के बिल्कुल निचले मध्य बिंदु पर है, अर्थात आधा चक्र पूरा हुआ है। हम पहले ग्लोब को ए और आखिरी को जी कहेंगे। प्रत्येक सौर प्रलय के बाद हमारे सौर मंडल का पूर्णतः विनाश होता है, और प्रत्येक सौर प्रलय के बाद हमारी प्रणाली का पूर्णतः वस्तुनिष्ठ पुनर्निर्माण शुरू होता है, और हर बार सब कुछ पहले से अधिक श्रेष्ठ होता है। अब जीवन तरंग ग्लोब ए में पहुंचती है, या यूं कहे कि जो ए बनने वाला है और जो अब तक सिर्फ कॉस्मिक डस्ट है। अंतरिक्ष में फैले सघनित सौर धूल के धुंधले पदार्थ में एक केंद्र बनता है, और 3 उत्क्रांतियों की एक श्रृंखला का क्रमवार निर्माण होता है, जो चर्म चक्षु के लिए अदृश्य होते हैं। शायद मैंने आगे का भी लिया है।
Yes, that is the next.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi and Vibha. So just to sum up very quickly what has come, I mean, some of the salient points to remember in this is that all these various planes that we're talking about, A, B, C, D, E, all of them, basically what he's saying is that those 5 elements, or we know there are 7, but we don't know what are the 7th one. We know the 6th is Mahabuddhi, but the 5 we know very clearly. Those 5 elements are themselves differentiated and develop in those planes in different forms. So each of those planes, like in Earth, we know what is Earth, what is air, what is water, what is fire. We know what is that. But those same components or same elements are forming the other planes also, the other globes also. So that is one of the key points to understand in this. And the second point to understand is, why is it called the Ashwatha tree? Because see, it's like a tree because everything is branching out from one trunk, but also like when the fire element, for example, differentiates from globe A in its 7 planes and then goes to globe B, it is like branching out into further and further, newer and newer versions of itself. So that is why this whole evolutionary thing is compared to a tree. The other thing, there is one thing, I don't know whether it puzzled others, but there was one part in Vibha's slide where she said where the Mahatma said that the mineral kingdom takes the longest to develop. So I was thinking, why did he say that? Because it's not logical. Like every kingdom will take the whatever equal amount of time. Then I realized that the mineral kingdom is preceded by the 3 elemental kingdoms. So when the 3 elemental kingdoms are done, only the mineral kingdom starts. But जैसे mineral kingdom खत्म होता है, the next kingdom, plant kingdom and everything, after that it goes one by one. But the mineral kingdom takes 3 elemental kingdoms, so 3 separate globes with their 7 rounds, and all that has to happen before the mineral kingdom appears on the globe. So that is something I just wanted to share. And anything else anybody wants to say, please go ahead now. Otherwise, we'll close the session.
So the time taken for the mineral kingdom, it is not due to the elemental kingdoms. It has to do with the world of causes and the world of effects. Man has to pass through the world of effects also after the physical death, but that is not the case with mineral. So their evolutionary cycle is slightly different. They are only on this world, which is called the world of causes. You don't go through the world of effects. Now, after his physical lifespan, man spends a considerable lifespan in we know that the astral sphere and then the Devachanic sphere, and then that cycle of reincarnation happens. But all these kingdoms have to evolve in such a way that they complete their evolution together on the 7th globe. After which, it will go into a planetary pralay. The system goes into a planetary pralay. So that is the reason. And this has been explained in the principle of retardation and acceleration in various kingdoms. I think that was covered in the previous letter, if I'm not wrong. But if we go through what is that principle of acceleration and deceleration, then this point will be clear. Why mineral kingdom takes the longest time for to complete its cycle. So it's not very clear to me also really, because we really need to understand what is that principle. But just because it is mentioned in the letter, I wanted to bring this to the notice of everyone.
I can only think of this, what I'm saying, elemental, because elemental kingdom, elemental one takes entire one globe. An entire globe is dedicated to elemental one. Elemental two, if you look at the inner life of C.W. Leadbeater, that book, it discusses this part. Don't know. I don't know whether it's correct or not. This is a lot of. Anyway.
Yes, that is why each one has to contemplate what they can make of what is given in the letters.
But then overall, if you try to understand what he is driving at, what he's driving at is that this entire complex evolutionary scheme is trying to produce man at the end of it. Manavantra, that's why it's called. But the thing is that it is in so many stages. That development is taking place in such a huge number of stages. So even one small thing like a mineral or an igneous rock or a sedimentary rock, how does it come? He has to go through a whole, there's a backlog of history even behind that. It's not as simple as, just one thing. Even the fire, which is fire, had to develop to become fire before it could come to form a mineral. So that is the complexity of it all, and this whole process is only for developing man. So then, when you see it from that viewpoint, you realize the onus of the responsibility that we have in our lives to make something of ourselves. How important it is, because imagine every single cell in my body has done so much hard work to become a cell, and now I own that cell.
True. So the universe is constituted of hosts of hierarchies of intelligences. There is a hierarchy behind every being. Any questions from the participants or any point of discussion? So I don't see any questions in the chat, nor Sheetalji, you have any question?
No, ma'am. I just realized that what is the said, God has a plan, and that plan is evolution.
Correct.
And so we are learning this, and this is really a very vast evolution
True.
process.
True.
Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Vimal.
Yeah. So let's
conclude.
Enjoy a moment of quiet and end with our prayer. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Vibha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheetalji. Thank you, everyone.